What is going on? The Catch fam. I hope you guys are doing phenomenal tonight, man. Hope everyone out there has had a great Monday. Hope you guys are having a great start to the week. I hope you guys are ready for week 8 of the 2023 fantasy football season because week 7 of the NFL season is just now wrapping up with the Vikings claiming victory over the 49ers. Brock Purdy, 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter after playing very, very well throughout the rest of this game. Good matchup tonight, a good matchup for fantasy as well for the most part. Christian McCaffrey, big game. No surprise there. 22 points, 2 touchdowns on the night. Brock Purdy was playing fine for like a super flex start, but like I said, those 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter, including the one that just lost the game, unless something really drastic happens in like the last 5 seconds, but probably going to lose the game, right? Brandon Ayuk, a decent game here, low ceiling, but 12.8 fantasy points. George Kittle, good enough game at 13 fantasy points. So, maybe a little bit of lower ceilings for the Niners players outside of Christian McCaffrey, but overall, good enough numbers, right? On the other hand, Jordan Addison went absolutely off tonight. 31.4 fantasy points, 124 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns for Addison. KJ Osborne did a couple things. He had 6 targets, 5 catches. So can't be too upset, but did drop, I don't know. It's kind of a tough ball to catch. But regardless, you weren't really relying on him for anything more than like a flex play, but 9.7 points. Alexander Madison, I would have really expected him to do well in this game, but 6.2 fantasy points if he did have to start him. TJ Hawkinson, 19.6 fantasy points. So good night for both tight ends to wrap up National Tight End Day weekend. So good game fantasy-wise. Oh, and I forgot about Captain Kirk. Kirk had a good game as well. 22 fantasy points, 378 passing yards. Had a pick, but 2 passing touchdowns as well. Good night for Kirk Cousins. Still without Justin Jefferson. Addison left the game for a little bit. Hawkinson went to the sideline at a point. A little bit worrisome there for a little bit, but the Vikings found a way. A good team win. And yes, I still believe in Brock Purdy, but wrapped up a little bit rough tonight. Jake Moody missed a field goal. Could have maybe changed the outcome of this game as well because the Niners would have just needed to get in field goal range there. But it is what it is. And we are on to week 8, ladies and gentlemen. So you guys know what we're getting into tonight. Anything that you guys need moving into week 8 of the season. Trades, waiver wire, coming up quickly, whatever you guys need, how are injuries affecting you, whatever it may be. Guys, we're almost halfway through the season. Can you believe that? Let me know in the chat, what is your current record? Let me know for every single league, but overall, how are you guys doing? I can't believe how quickly the season is rolling on. So let's not waste any time. Talk some fantasy football, ladies and gentlemen. So, and let me know how week 7 went for you guys. Let me know what we need to do to get you guys wrapped up moving into the coming week, because it's kind of like, this is it. Like, we got to start winning some games if you haven't been, and if you have been winning, like I said, we're about halfway through. So let's get into it. All right, sorry guys, I've been typing out the poll and I get messed up like every time I look up. All right, ask me any fantasy questions, hit the like button. Let's get into it. LeBron, let's go, man. We had a great matchup in the Super Flex League. Ended up losing by like 1.5 points to you, but nonetheless, always love a good matchup. Just needed, I was this close. I didn't really go into tonight's matchup expecting to beat you anyways, but I knew there was a shot with Christian McCaffrey being on my roster, but then once again, like, I knew he was going to this game, maybe a little bit limited. So I didn't really expect much, but it was fun. Came down to the wire, lost by like 1.5 points or whatever. But good game, man. GG's. Congrats. Mr. Jones, what's up? Albert, hello. Smokey, thanks, Bijan. Cost me my week. Could have played Foreman if I knew he was out. Yeah, what a weird situation that we saw with the Atlanta Falcons and Arthur Smith and Bijan Robinson. I mean, I obviously there's going to be some sort of investigation into this, but potentially maybe like Bijan knew he didn't feel well, and then he wanted to play and he wanted to suit up and try and play, and then maybe they just planned on not utilizing him as much. Maybe he really was sick the whole time. I don't know. I mean, this is just a super, super weird situation with Bijan, and it left a lot of fantasy managers and a lot of sports bettors really upset. And I mean, I know like DraftKings was refunding like any lines that included Bijan Robinson, but I don't think like a lot of places are going to do that. I mean, he still played enough snaps that they didn't need to do that. But what a weird situation. And yeah, trust me, you're not the only one who got screwed over by it. Who is the number one running back waiver in your opinion? Probably Darrell Henderson is who I want to take the strongest look at in terms of a short-term play. If Kareem Hunt's available, which he's rostered in a much higher percentage of leagues, but if Kareem Hunt is out there, I do like Kareem Hunt as well. It's a good matchup this week. Jerome Ford, low ankle sprain. We know he's going to miss a week or two. But like I said, not as likely to be available. I do think Darrell Henderson worth scooping up. Looks like he's going to be the guy. I mean, don't get me wrong, Royce Freeman involved enough, but I like Henderson. Ezekiel Elliott worth looking at as well. I mean, we saw that he is at least going to be vulturing touchdowns the last 2 weeks, so like gives you a little bit of a floor. And Amari DeMarcado for the Cardinals, like I think you can consider him. He's not my favorite, but I did talk about him in the waiver wire video because he got much more involvement than anyone else in that backfield. Like literally nobody else got any involvement. So I like him. I guess if you have to go that route, he'll probably get like 3 points next week. Tajay Spears worth taking a look at as well if he got dropped due to the bye week. And if you're super desperate, I think Josh Kelly is okay because it's a good matchup this week for the Chargers. But that's really like the only reason. But I mean, I do think that when Austin Eckler is on the field, Josh Kelly plays better. So for that reason, it's worth thinking about, I guess. All right. Needed 0.7 more from Addison. He's a stud. Dang. Almost got it for you. What's up, Godfather? Good to see you. Hello, Emil. Good to see you. Won 2 of my matchups this week. Lost a heartbreaker in my third league, though. I mean, hey, 2-1 on the week. Can't be too upset, right? Full PPR trade question. I got Mike Evans, Joe Mixon, and Pacheco. Or I get Mike Evans, Mixon, Pacheco. He gets DJ Moore and ETN. Which side wins? Jalen Warren, Miles Sanders is my RB2 currently. I mean, it helps you. You're really struggling at running back if Warren and Sanders are your RB2s. So, I mean, I don't feel great about Mixon on like a week-to-week basis. I mean, I guess the floor is okay, but there's really just no ceiling. He hasn't scored more than 14 points in a game this year. He starts things off from the bye week with San Francisco, Buffalo, Houston, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville. Not particularly a great stretch for Mixon there, but losing ETN just absolutely stinks. But if you need to win, I think Mixon and Pacheco as your RB1 and 2 are fine. Evans and Moore is a fine swap. So if you need to do it, I think it's okay. But I hate to see you lose ETN, man. Marcus, what's good, man? I'm 2-5, 12-team full PPR. I have Fields, Goff, Bijan, ETN, Roshan. What are some moves to turn the team around? Man, this is tough. I mean, Goff, bad week this week, but outside of that was a top 5 quarterback. I mean, losing Fields, we already know the situation there, but you still roll Bijan and ETN out on a weekly basis. Yeah, you just got you just have a lot of bad spots. Like Amon-Ra, fine, but Devonta Smith, like what in the world is happening there? Amari Cooper being really affected, at least this week, by PJ Walker's quarterback play and not having Deshaun Watson, I guess. And Higgins has just been what a wild up and down season. Ferguson just not really a consistent ceiling or floor there. I mean, if I'm you, even though Ferguson had a really promising start to the season, I'm just rotating tight ends off the waiver wire and taking a shot for the best potential matchup with the most upside. You could package like Higgins and Amari, Higgins and Smith, Amari and Smith, however you want to look at it, and try and really get a big upgrade at wide receiver if you can find the right team. Maybe you can package Roschon Johnson on with one of these wide receivers and see if you can upgrade that way. Because really, when you're looking at the makeup of this team, I mean, I love Bijan and ETN, but you have wide receiver depth. You just haven't gotten consistent play out of them. So you have to kind of look at this squad as like wide receiver heavy. Like that's where the benefit on this team is. So but I just don't think you can afford to really trade any of your running back. So I try to package Roschon with one of the wide receivers and start there. Or just look to see if there's a team that you can snag up a studly wide receiver for two of those guys. But other than that, I don't think there's much you can do. I mean, with Ferguson, I do think you can kind of start rotating tight ends off waiver just to get a little bit more upside. I want to say thanks in advance for suggesting and play Najee. Nice. Glad it worked out for you. Is Cam droppable at this point? Cam Akers, yeah. Did Olave really just get arrested? Whoa. I'm about to change the thumbnail. Oh, wow. Chris Olave arrested for reckless operation of a motor vehicle tonight. Was traveling 35 miles per hour over the posted speed limit. He did not resist, was cooperative with law enforcement. That's probably not great. But I don't think it's the end of the world. I mean, as long as it doesn't look like there was alcohol involved, it looks like he cooperated. I mean, it's not good with everything else going on in terms of like having some up and down play and the injury and then the debacle on Thursday Night Football, all of that. But I mean, I'm not saying it's like good for him as a player, but I being realistic in terms of punishment from what we've seen in the history of NFL teams and the NFL in general. I don't know if it's really going to affect anything fantasy wise. I mean, that is what we have to do on a week to week basis, is look at these things and how do they affect us in fantasy football. I mean, Hollywood Brown did this last year. Jordan Addison did this in the off season. Yeah, I mean, it's not good, but I'm just saying from a fantasy perspective, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. But the update from Sleeper is 3 minutes old, so maybe we give it a little bit of time to marinate and see if anything else comes out of it. But we'll just see what happens and see if the team wants to do something about this. But I mean, my first update is just all caps. Olave just got arrested, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this going to lead to? But all right, we'll see what happens there. Spence, glad you made it to your destination. Hope everything's going great with you, man. Shopkey says Wild game was a good game. At the end of the day, just happy to watch a good football game. I actually got to watch most of this game too. Don, what's going on, my guy? Good to see you. Aftershock, what's up? Hello. 4-3 and 7-0. Let's go, man. Both of those are good records to have, especially the 7-0 one. It's true. Olave was rested for going 35 over. Wild. Joe, 5-2, a couple lucky wins. Nice. Yeah, not a great look for Olave with everything else looming at the moment. Chris, what's up, my guy? 3-4, but lead league in scoring. Oh, I know, it's so annoying. We see that so often too. 5-2, 4-3, 3-4. Hey, Could be a lot worse. I had a really interesting matchup last night in my primary league. The league's wide open. There's like, a team that's now going to be 4-2. There's like 6 teams now that have 3 losses. Like every other team has like 2 losses or 4 losses. Like 2 teams with, I don't know. The league's wide open. It doesn't really matter. A really interesting matchup last night that was just back and forth. And I went to bed like, oh, I lost this matchup, and I needed to win really. But I actually won 117.8, 116.8. But I had Jalen Waddle. He had the Eagles defense. I also had DeAndre Swift. So there was a point in the game where I was like, oh yeah, I won. Like I'm good. And then Tua threw that interception, and it put me back down below. And then DeAndre Swift got me back up. And then the Dolphins gave up 2 sacks, which count as points in this league. It put me back down. And then Jalen Waddle made a catch at the end of the game. So like, I didn't even see the final catch, but I don't know why I'm telling that story. But regardless, I'm going to be 4-3 in that league. Yeah, I got really lucky that you played. I mean, I guess I didn't really get lucky, but I got lucky that I had a chance to beat you because you started Keontae Ingram. What's up, Josiah? Good to see you. Thoughts on Ridley rest of season? Tempted to start Pickens over him until things turn around. Yeah, I mean, I still think, I was kind of saying it before last week, like Ridley is really a guy that you're throwing in the flex. Unfortunately, doesn't have that wide receiver 2 appeal that you drafted him to be. Maybe some builds even drafted him as a wide receiver 1. He's a flex guy. I mean, he's a boomer bust flex play, and that's all we can look at him for. Kirk is a consistency factor at the wide receiver position for the Jaguars. Pickens, I mean, I know he's coming off of a great game, really stepped up, or, while Deontay was out and now Deontay's back, but Pickens looked fine with him on the field. But Pickens is still in that boomer bust category, in my opinion, but he has been solid enough this year. I mean, he's only had 2 games where he hasn't given you double digits. 2 good matchups coming up against Jacksonville and Tennessee. So if you want to throw him out there, I think that's fine. But I would bear in mind that the Steelers secondary has not been very good against opposing wide receivers. But I really like Christian Kirk going into this matchup against the Steelers as opposed to Calvin Ridley. So I don't think it's crazy to throw Pickens out there in front of him. But Steelers secondary still kind of sucks. They played really well against Kupp this past week and not well against Puka. And I just have a feeling we could see something similar against Ridley and Kirk, with Kirk benefiting. Davis, what's up, man? Didn't see you at the gym today. Were you scared? You didn't want to come? 49ers, am I right? Am I a Cowboys fan? I'm proud of Dusty old Zeke. Oh, I'm a Cowboys fan. Yeah, good for Zeke. I'm always rooting for Zeke. That's my guy. Dropped to 1-6 this week. Johnny D, that's my name. Just can't seem to buy a win this year, with most of my players being so inconsistent in injuries. Adam Smith and Joku. Yeah, I mean, just don't give up. You never know. I mean, like, you can have a lot of teams fall off, and the best thing you can do to give yourself a shot is keep setting the best lineups you can. Keep picking up the best possible players off of the waiver wire, whatever you can, to beat every team in front of you, knock as many teams potentially out of the playoffs, and put yourself in the best position. I mean, you never know. I mean, you can still make the playoffs with 6 losses, so just don't give up quite yet. Ray Singletary, I do like Singletary. I mean, obviously, got a lot of involvement before the bye week, and I mean, Damian Pierce just hasn't really done anything in terms of what we drafted him to do. I wasn't crazy on him going into the year, but I mean, he's the RB30 in fantasy. Has only hit double digits twice this year, at 13 touches last week, compared to Singletary's 12 touches. So that's really the only. I mean, Singletary saw some involvement early in the year, but nothing crazy. That was his first game with double digits. So it's a good matchup in week 8 against the Panthers. The Panthers are so bad against the run that both these running backs could end up scoring. So I do think Singletary worth the pickup for sure. Played Warren instead of Foreman. Oh no. I actually liked Foreman going into the weekend. He was a player that I encouraged most of you guys to start at least, or at least told you guys it was okay to start him. Cash a 25 bomb in WW. Thanks, Addison. Let's go. Gibbs and Monty are really the new Swift and Jamal Williams. Yeah, I mean, we said it all offseason. That's what it was probably going to look like. And here we are. All right, 10-team PPR with 2 keepers. The own 7 teams said they would trade Jamar Chase, but only for a draft pick next year. Any idea what round might be fair to offer? I would give up next year pick for Chase rental. I mean, as high as they want is probably worth it. I mean, it's Jamar Chase, so I mean, still try to keep it realistic and don't hurt yourself too badly. But if they want a first or second rounder, it's worth it. It's Chase, right? What do you have to offer? Someone dropped Tank. Should I drop Judy for him? I mean, does your roster need a handcuff running back more or a subpar wide receiver and Jerry Judy more? I mean, just kind of to ask yourself the question. And I mean, Judy did some stuff last week, 5 targets, 5 catches, 64 receiving yards. Better than his last performance. We had 4 points. He's playing the same team he had 4 points against this week, though, which would be Kansas City. But the Broncos are at home this week, if that means anything. So, I mean, Judy, like, if you want to drop Judy, I'm not against it. It just depends. Do you need wide receiver depth? Even if it's a guy who doesn't have a high ceiling on a weekly basis, like Jerry Judy, or do you need a handcuff? I mean, I think they are swappable in terms of value. Trying to trade Devontae Adams, who would you recommend trying to look at? I mean, what you need to do is look at teams out there who needs a wide receiver. But I wouldn't sell yourself short on Devontae Adams, but the best teams in your league to target are going to be those who are hurting at wide receiver. So, yeah, the ceiling's been low. He still found double digits in week 7. Gets Detroit this week. Okay matchup. It's a Giants. Okay matchup. Gets the Jets. Not a great matchup. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter, though. He's still he's the wide receiver 13 in fantasy, even coming off of a poor performance last week. So, I mean, I don't want to say a poor performance, but a low ceiling performance, then having 2 poor performances the prior 2 weeks. So, I mean, he wants to target, was vocal about it. They gave him 12 targets this week. I just wouldn't sell yourself too short on Adams at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, you just got to go look out at teams and, who can afford to trade for Adams and actually give you value and target those teams, start having discussions with them. But just don't sell yourself short. I mean, Adams was probably still a first round pick for you. The catch. That's right. Drop Musgrave for Kincaid. I think that's fine. I mean, Dalton Kincaid, I didn't end up putting him in the waiver wire video, but I didn't actually realize that he's just 41% rostered, which makes sense. I mean, didn't do anything in week 6 and has essentially his ceiling on the season before this past week was 9.3 fantasy points, but 8 targets, 8 receptions in a game where the Bills were primarily playing from behind, but that doesn't really matter. I mean, the game script still benefited him, but now Dawson Knox is going to have wrist surgery. So Kincaid is rostered in 41% of leagues. If he's available, he should be picked up. And, Musgrave, Kincaid is interesting, but Musgrave is a little bit banged up, hurt his ankle. I still like Musgrave. I expected a bigger game out of him, but like I just said, he got hurt. I'll say this much. Kincaid gives you a little bit more upside, so I'd probably make that move. Yeah, Lave was arrested. Primed propaganda. Someone dropped Tank Dell. Drop Judy for him. Sutton is also available. Sutton is the player who is the best out of these 3. I mean, Cortland Sutton is so easy to look at and just not want to give him any credit, I guess. But Cortland Sutton has had a really good year so far. He's the wide receiver 18 in fantasy, so he's top 20 wide receiver. I mean, Tank Dell is still. I would rather have Tank Dell than Jerry Judy, but I'd rather have Sutton than any of these guys. I talked about this a lot going in the year. How I thought Sutton was coming into the season kind of under the radar. When you look back to last season, he gave you double digits in every game he was healthy in, except for 4 games, and he's kind of playing in similar fashion this season. I mean, he's had double digits every single game except for week 5 against the Jets, who have a good secondary. 19.6 fantasy points last week against the Packers, had a touchdown, 76 receiving yards. I mean, he has 5 touchdowns on the season. His career high is 6 touchdowns. So he's having a good year. He's a guy that you should want to own out of these players. So I go get him. Can you really be rushed for going 35 only? 35 over. I mean, it definitely depends on like what state you're in and all that stuff. But supposedly Kamara's in the car at the Lave. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Downs or Sutton this week in full PPR. I mean, I guess I feel like I have to say Sutton after that hype talk I just gave him, but it is kind of a steep matchup against the Chiefs. This defense has been great for the Chiefs this year, and Sutton had a great touchdown catch against them 2 weeks ago. But if you took that away, he wasn't going to have a great game. But I still think you have to consider. I mean, I think Josh Downs is fine. I'll say it this way: I think Sutton's actually the floor play here. I think you get a little bit more upside out of Josh Downs. So if you want to go for upside, start Josh Downs. I mean, he has a little bit of a steeper matchup. Actually, I don't know off the top of my head, the Chiefs or the Saints are ranking higher against wide receivers, but they're both solid starts. I think you can get a little bit more upside with Downs. Great week for Downs this past week. NFL's looking into the Bijan situation with how he wasn't reported as sick or anything, even though supposedly the Falcons should have known. Yeah, saw that. Needed this win. 4-3 now. Was up 24 with the opponent having Purdy Niners defense. Nice. That is super close. Lave arrested for going 35 miles over the speed limit. Reckless operation of a motor vehicle. Don't have any other update. Do I roll out Madison, Pierce, or Hunt this week? Pierce has the best matchup against the Panthers, but I don't know if I can start him with 100% confidence. Yeah, it's interesting. I really like Hunt this week. I really like Madison. Really good matchups for them as well. So, yes, the best matchup is for Pierce, but don't sell yourself short on the matchups that Madison will have against the Packers, a team that's been really soft against the run. I mean, they just gave up a touchdown to Javonte Williams this past week of all players. And Kareem Hunt gets the Seahawks, another solid matchup. So I talk about Madison and Kareem Hunt in the must starts for the week at running back. But Pierce could have a big day against the Panthers. That's tough. I'm going to go with Kareem Hunt, though. I really like him this week. The Browns have really been trusting him. Ford's going to be out. Good matchup. I'd roll him out there. But I think there's an argument for all these guys, undoubtedly. All right, let's see. Olave, what are we going to do? Just don't be like me and leave a player on the bench that had over 30 points for 4 weeks in a row. I mean, I've actually had a couple leagues where I've left a lot of points on the bench this year. It's been tough. Trade away Kamara and Tank Dell for Madison and Ayuk. The regret is starting to kick in. Yeah, it definitely sucks to lose Kamara. But I still think Ayuk and Madison, very solid pieces, just not as high of a ceiling. Tank Dell, we need to see him back on the field, but don't beat yourself up too much. A lot of season left, but Kamara not on your team probably hurts for sure. What do you think about Roshan? So the concussion protocol for Roshan taking some time here, which is interesting. Has a chance to practice Wednesday. So he'll probably clear this week. I'm thinking he's been in concussion protocol for like ever now. But I mean, if he plays, I do like him this week. It's a solid matchup. I like Donta Foreman this week as well, and maybe there's a chance that Roschon gets eased in, but they play the Chargers. It's a pretty good matchup. We just have to kind of see what the situation looks like in terms of him coming back. But I don't know. I mean, I do think that Donta Foreman coming off the game he just had, they might just kind of ride the hot hand. So we'll see. But I think Roschon is still worth rostering, of course. Tater Toddy, smash the like. Appreciate that, bro. Hit the like, guys. What do you do, Bijan, and what do you do, Bijan and Mark Andrews for Tyreek? Yes. Why not? There's like a small tier of players that if you guys are trading for him, I'm probably going to say yes, and Tyreek's in it. But Bijan, still very close. I mean, I know this past week was rough. And the last 2 weeks before that, like the ceiling wasn't great. But Bijan's going to be just fine. He is. He's going to be just fine. He's still a top 15 back, but I like Tyreek Hill. Should I drop Damon Pierce for Singletary or Spears? That's so tough, man. I mean, is there someone else you can drop? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we want to get too wrapped up in this Texans backfield. I mean, Singletary, good amount of touches in week 6, but it's not like we have like a consistent like pattern or anything. I don't know. This is a tough situation. I think I probably hold Pierce for now, but it's close. Bijan Andrews Olave looks like what he'd accept. The other offer on the table for Hill for another team is Pollard, Adams, and Ferguson. If you want Hill, you should definitely get involved in the bidding war. It's a lot to give up, but when you're trading for a player of Tyreek Hill's caliber, it's fair. He's a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. I mean, he is almost at it. He'll probably hit 1,000 receiving yards next week. He's literally on pace to hit 2,000 receiving yards. So I mean, yeah, like he's just crazy good. It's a lot to give up, but I can't say that it's not fair. Manuel 5-2. Let's go. Might be the most unlucky fantasy player of all time. So far this season, every big performance happened against me. That happens with teams, man, where that's why points against is really interesting to look at, because sometimes a team is just fine and you look at the points against and it's way ahead of everyone else in the league. So it happens, my guy, unfortunately. I had literally the same total points as opponent yesterday. He has Kirk left. I have Jordan left. Thought I'd lose, but man, Michael Jordan Addison. Let's go, baby. Which defense should I stream for week 8? Yeah, there's some good options. I mean, I still like the Jaguars for like a decent floor. Liked them last week. Started them in a lot of leagues last week. They played fine on Thursday Night Football. I mean, ended up getting you like exactly 10 fantasy points. I know a lot of leagues scoring is different for different leagues. I think the Jets are interesting this week. They play the Giants. The Jets were on bye week last week, so they might be available for you. I mean, they don't have like a massive ceiling, but they're still a top 8 defense in fantasy football. So I think that they are okay if they're available. Let me see. Yeah, rostered in 53% of leagues still, but they're worth picking up if they are out there. The Saints still worth a shot. I mean, I know they got like blown up this past week, and the Colts were able to throw the football pretty effectively against the Browns, but they're still a top 10 defense. They're worth a shot if you're desperate, and maybe Minshew Mania's magic has ran out. Maybe it hasn't, though. Colts are at home for what it's worth. Outside of that, I mean, we got some big matchups this week, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, Bucks, Bills, maybe there's an opportunity there. Bills have been turning the football over a lot, but I just don't like Thursday night matchups, especially for defenses. So, like the Jets, like the Jaguars. I mean, you got the Eagles, Commanders. I doubt the Eagles are available in your leagues. Rams, Cowboys. Rams on the road. I'm not going to trust them against the Cowboys. Vikings, Packers. I'll stay away there. Falcons, Titans. Maybe one of those teams you could stream, but I don't feel great about it. I mean, maybe the Falcons, but they just aren't really one of these units. I mean, they're defense 25 in fantasy, so I'm not going to go there. Patriots, Dolphins, Saints, Colts, Texans, Panthers, Browns, Hawks, Bengals, Niners, Ravens, Cardinals, Chiefs, Broncos, Bears, Chargers, Raiders, Lions. Yeah, there's not a lot out there in terms of streaming, so see what you can come up with. Do you think the Falcons will get fined for not telling that Bijan was sick? I don't really know because I don't know like the logistics of all this stuff, but like what's the fine print? But also he played like a decent amount of snaps. Well, I mean 17%, one rushing attempt. I don't know, man. Potentially. We'll see what it brings, but potentially for sure. Between Walker, JT Kirk, and Moore, who should be my flex? Who should be my RB2? Walker should be in your lineup no matter what, and Christian Kirk should be in your lineup no matter what. And some weeks you might even go Jonathan Taylor, Kenneth Walker, but yeah, Walker and Kirk, and it's not even close for me. Any chance the league suspends Olave? Probably not, but there's a chance. AJ Brown for Adams, who says no. Brown's been killing it, man. Do you think Devontae will be traded? No. If he's traded, do you think he'll pop off? Yes, but I don't think he will be. Full PPR, need a flex. Godwin, Pierce, Madison, McLaurin, or Downs. Godwin if he's healthy. If he's not, go McLaurin. I think he's going to have a good week. His best game of the year was against the Eagles. I mean, you could even go McLaurin over Godwin. I think McLaurin's going to have a good week in general. 4 and 3, 10-man half PPR with Mahomes, Walker, JT, Jacobs, Jamar, Evans. Potentially have an offer of Kenneth Walker and Evans for Puka and Jefferson. I'm a big Kenneth Walker fan, but this trade is probably worth it. Try not to yawn. It's like the worst yawn cover up ever. Man, Mahomes, JT, Jacobs, Jamar, Puka, and JJ down the stretch. Tonight was good if you own JJ because the Vikings got to win. Makes the season more competitive, right? You can do this trade, but your ceiling at running back lowers. But right now, your ceiling at wide receivers fine. I mean, Evans. I don't know if we're gonna see what we were seeing the first couple of weeks with Mike Evans, but I mean, at least on a consistent week to week basis. After having, I mean, obviously this past week we saw, but the 2 weeks prior to that we didn't see it. So I don't know, man. It's close. If you're in a good position, like you're winning games, then I think you can. If you still need a win now, I wouldn't do. You're 4 and 3. It's not a bad trade, but I think your team is pretty solid as is. I'm personally, I might be biased. I'm really high on Kenneth Walker. So, and here's the other thing is you're playing in a half PPR format. So those running backs have a lot more value. I think I'd hold because Jamar Chase and Mike Evans are both guys that score touchdowns. Like, I don't think it's a bad trade, but half PPR, I think I keep the running back depth and the two guys who get targeted in the red zone on a consistent basis. I think I hold here. If you needed to win now, it'd be a little bit different, but 4 and 3 is nothing to panic about. Thoughts on Miles Sanders after the bye? I mean, I hope the bye week helps him, but I'm not personally very high on Miles Sanders. It's like this Panthers team is just consistently in a position where they need to throw the football because they're playing from behind. I just don't think he's a high ceiling running back on the season. They only suspended Kamara for 3 games for literally getting into a brawl. Olave will probably get a slap on the wrist. Agreed. Yeah, like I said, my first update was Olave just got arrested. My second update, when we read it, was like, oh, the league usually doesn't do much about reckless driving. Ravens or Seattle this week. Also Watson or Amari Cooper. I go the Ravens. Yeah. Start the Ravens this week. They get the Cardinals. There should be opportunity there. Seattle is interesting, playing the Browns. They are a top 5 defense technically in fantasy, but they also had 32 points in week 4. They've had 8 or less points the last 2 weeks. So sometimes you can't read too much into rankings, but the Ravens are your defense 4. I think I roll the Ravens out there. I think I feel better about that situation. Watson or Cooper. Flex also Watson, Ferguson, Amari for Ridley and Goddard. I mean, you can still consider Amari Cooper this week. I know last week was rough. The interesting thing here is Christian Watson is a little banged up. He's questionable, so it's hard to say. I think for now, you put Cooper in there and you just kind of monitor the situation with Christian Watson to see what happens. But I still like Watson this week if he plays. It's a good matchup against the Vikings. Cooper, fine against the Hawks. Ridley, fine against the Steelers. But let's see. So it was Flex, Watson, Ferguson, Amari for Ridley and Goddard. So are you just saying, should I start one of those guys over Ridley or Goddard? I mean, I would, in full PPR, I prefer to start Christian Watson, Amari Cooper, and Calvin Ridley. Goddard's been good as of late, but I still prefer the wide receiver position over a tight end in the flex. And Washington has played pretty well against opposing tight ends this year. When the Eagles and the Commanders played in week 4, Goddard had 4.5 fantasy points. But I mean, for what it's worth, Goddard's the tight end 4. So you can still consider him, but I prefer to start the wide receivers personally. Should I pick up Henderson or Foreman and drop Warren? I'd rather roster either of those guys than Warren. I mean, the question you have to ask yourself is, are you in a win now position? Then yes, you should. Are you not, and you want to hold on to the handcuff and Jalen Warren to Najee Harris? That's fine. Yeah, I'd read that the Raiders are not going to trade Adams, but you never know. John, good to see you, my guy. I hope you're doing fantastic, my dude. Who would you put at flex, full PPR, Higgins, London, Collins? It's really tough for me to sit Higgins. So if he's good to go, I'm probably throwing Higgins out there. But that's probably who I preferably want to start. Nice little matchup against the Niners. I think I go Higgins. It's not necessarily a nice matchup, but I mean, in terms of game script, it should be a good matchup. Should I trade JT for a wide receiver of Kamara and Breece Hall? Ridley's my wide receiver too. You can. If you get the right price, yeah, but I think JT, Kamara, and Breece has a lot of value itself. And Ridley, boomer bust guy, but what other wide receivers do you have hanging around? Start 2, Cook, Jones, White. Yeah. Probably Cook and Jones. White, Thursday Night Football, short week. The Bills actually haven't been very good against opposing running backs. They've played much better against opposing wide receivers and quarterbacks, unless you're Mac Jones, apparently. What a game there. But, I mean, Rachaad White did put up 15 fantasy points this past week. I was really happy to see that. But he's been really up and down, pretty disappointing. Has had a really tough schedule for the running back position. So probably Cook and Jones. And I mean, it's interesting because Cook is in the same matchup and he has a tough matchup. I mean, the Bucs have played pretty well against the position. So Aaron Jones, just such a disappointment this past week. I was expecting big things out of him against that Denver Broncos run unit. Him and A.J. Dillon, just not a high ceiling. I mean, Dillon actually had more fantasy points at 11.5, where Jones had 8.7. So the Vikings are actually a top 10 unit against the run. That probably changed after tonight. They were a top 10 unit going into this past week, but after CMC torched them, probably changed. So maybe I change that. Maybe I go Cook and White. What's your faith in Aaron Jones? Najee or B-Rob this week? I mean, they both have bad matchups. The Jags, listen, guys, the Jags just straight up are a good football team. I mean, I know, like, in some aspects, like Calvin Ridley, Trevor Lawrence, from a fantasy perspective, they haven't been ultimately the best, but they are a good football team and they have a good run defense. But Brian Robinson plays the Eagles. Both these teams are top 5 against the run when it comes to fantasy football. So who do you trust more? Who do you trust more? For what it's worth, the Steelers are at home. The Commanders are also at home. I don't know why I thought the Commanders were away this week. They're not. I'm going to go Najee, but I don't like it. Jefferson and Jamar in the playoffs would be dangerous. I'm also very high on Kenneth Walker too, because I stole him in the 5th round. Nice. It's really close, but like I said, being that it's half PPR, you're in a pretty good spot already. I hold on to that running back depth because I actually think your wide receivers are really valuable in a half PPR format. But I don't disagree. Like, I don't think it's an awful trade by any means. I think I stay put. Traded Addison and Godwin for Puka before this week's game. I don't know how to feel about it anymore after Addison's game. I wouldn't feel great. Interesting decision because, if you were an Addison owner, you knew that he was going to get more opportunities while JJ was out. But I can't really blame you for going and getting Puka. I mean, don't panic. You still got Puka Nacua, who's been balling out too. But you lost a little bit of depth, right? And Addison, obviously a great game. But don't panic. My bet on the Olave update. No, the Olave update was great. I appreciate you sending it. It's just funny. No worries at all, man. Would you trade Aaron Jones? No, because he's not coming off of a good game. Like, I don't like selling players low. Like, what's the worst that can happen? And week 8, they have 8 fantasy points again. Then you just hold them. What's the best that can happen? In week 8, they have double digits or they get you close to 20 points. Then you can sell them high, especially if they have a good matchup the following week. So I wouldn't sell them right now unless it's part of a package and it sweetens the deal. But no, I wouldn't do it personally. Christian Watson, Amari, and Ferguson for Ridley and Goddard trade-wise. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. My bad. I definitely consider it. Totally, sorry. When I answered your question, I was going in every direction except the one that you needed me to. I'm sorry, man. So Watson or Cooper in the flex was your original question. Okay, my bad. Probably going to be Cooper. Watson might not play, but we'll find out. Watson, Ferguson, Amari for Ridley and Goddard. Okay, I got you now, my dude. I think it's actually pretty close. I mean, Goddard's a huge upgrade over Ferguson because even if Goddard has those down weeks, you just throw him in, you set him, you forget him, you move along, right? Ridley, still a great boomer bust flex option. And outside of this past week, I don't know. I mean, Amari's been really consistent outside of this past week. So Watson kind of in that same-ish category. Hard to say because he's been hurt lately. It kind of depends on the full roster. I mean, I think it's a pretty fair trade because it's a big upgrade at tight end, but Are you okay with losing Watson and Amari Cooper and only getting Ridley back? Like, how does that affect your roster? Would you trade the Niners defense for a half-eaten bag of chips? I think my opponent this week would, since his defense sold against TJ Hawkinson. Yeah, I mean, the Niners defense last year, while they were always great up front, they, on a consistent basis, had problems in the secondary. And, this past year, their secondary's been playing pretty well. But the past week or so, they've been starting to fold a little bit, especially tonight. Bunny Hop, what's up, man? I had Hawkinson, Kamara, Ford, James Cook, and Geno this week. Let's go, baby. Cash money. Right now, I have Swift, Cook, and White in, but I just wasn't sure about Jones. Yeah, it's close. Like sometimes, like with the Thursday night football thing, like you can see more defense show up. You also see a lot of defenses not play as well in offense. I mean, kind of like the Saints Jaguars game. Like both those defenses were really good going into the week, but that short week and everything can really affect teams. So I'm not as worried about White and Cook as I was initially. I think it could actually end up being okay. Here's an interesting one. T-Law or Goff this week. T-Law showed up against a good defense on a short week with an injury and had his best fantasy game of the season, on a season where he's been playing at a pretty low ceiling. So I was worried about him going into this matchup. I guess week one was technically his second best performance of the year, but still was nice to see. He's at Pittsburgh this week. T-Law's a tough guy to bench, but Goff was playing much better before a tough matchup against Baltimore. So Goff's at home. He gets the Raiders. Can't really go wrong here. I'll go Goff, though. Close. Should I at least consider trading for JJ now? My receivers or are Tyreek, CD, Waddle, Kirk, Godwin, McLaurin, and Downs. The JJ owner has said he takes CD and Waddle for him. You can. I mean, you have really good depth. Like, you're fine. I mean, you lose CD and Waddle. That gives you Tyreek, Christian Kirk, then just, a guy in Godwin or McLaurin or Downs. So you can. But, man, you're so loaded at wide receiver. I am generally a depth guy. I think it's the right time to trade for JJ, but when I see like depth like this, I'm like, that's such a good thing to have because you just never know, especially the way the season has gone. Like Waddle gets a back injury like he did this past week, and then CeeDee Lamb pulls his hamstring. Like, I really like your depth. I think you should take advantage of it. But if you're going to trade for JJ, I'm not against it. It's a good trade. Is Rice and Madison plenty fair for A-Shane, or should I replace Matt with Algier? I mean, try to replace him with Algier because Madison has more value. Start there and then work up the value. But it's I mean, if they need to win now, they should do that trade. Yeah, see what happens. Good to see a real gopher. Much love. Andrew, I got Kyle Pitts at tight end. Should I pick up Kincaid? Yes. Kincaid, great pickup right now. Who do I start at flex? Wilson, Kirk, Ridley, Watson, or Deontay? Christian Kirk against this really bad Steelers secondary. He's going to be like in a similar position to what we just saw Puka in. I love Christian Kirk this week. 3 and 4 in that league right now, but I think I still have a great chance of playoffs. Yeah, receivers are filthy, man. My opinion, Thursday night games suck for fantasy. Yeah, 100%. And like I just stray away from Thursday night football when it comes to fantasy calls, because if you get too heavy into a Thursday night matchup and you get disappointed, then like it just starts your whole week off at a disadvantage. So, I mean, the perfect example this year is Washington and Chicago. Like, I mean, I surprised that Washington's defense completely faltered and Chicago played well? No, but I was surprised that Washington did like essentially nothing on the ground in that game. Like Brian Robinson should have been a smash play, like an easy play, high ceiling running back, found the end zone and did nothing. And it's just a good example of like the team that wasn't supposed to show up showed up. And I mean, even this past week is a good example. Like both those teams have been really defensive this year, and just both the defenses completely faltered. So I agree. I don't like Thursday night when it comes to football or fantasy, I should say. Love or Goff? I'll go Goff. Goff's at home. He gets the Raiders. I agree. ER, thank you, bro. Thank you so much for the $2 dono. I appreciate you, man. What a guy. Emojis in the chat for ER. Thank you, my dude. Appreciate it. Happy to help you guys in any way I can. With that being said, if you guys have any questions, be sure to get them in because we're only going for an hour tonight. I got a little bit of editing to do, so be sure to get your guys' questions in here over the next minute or so because I'm going to start wrapping up. So let me know what you guys need. Happy to help you guys in any way I can. Am I crazy thinking about not starting Mike Evans over Josh Downs since Evans is playing on Thursday night? I mean, by the logic we were just talking about, you're not crazy, but I think you got to start Mike Evans. That's the problem too, with Thursday night matchups. Sometimes there's just players that you just can't bench them. Mike Evans is a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy. I think you roll him out there. They're at Buffalo. They're probably going to have to throw the football, play from behind. Josh Downs is still fine, but Mike Evans, I think you just got to play him. Need a QB for week 9. Should I pick up a QB replacement now? Carr, Love, Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson, Dobbs, Minshew. I mean, Love still had 20 fantasy points. He gets the Vikings. I think Jordan Love is a good streaming option. I liked him this past week against the Broncos. He gets the Vikings. Their secondary still really weak. They're at home. I say Jordan Love, not Daniel Jones. Darren Waller, Hawkinson. Not even close. No disrespect to Waller. He did score a touchdown this past week. Stevie, what's up, my dude? Good to see you. Let's go Vikings, man. How about them Purdy interceptions in the fourth quarter? What was my boy doing, man? Congrats on a dub for your team. Good to see you, my guy. I swear I'm a receiving according to the league where Mike Evans is going to drive me insane. Got Evans, DJ Moore, Sutton, Downs, and Debo. That definitely is a frustrating receiving core. I mean, I say just throw Evans. I mean, the problem is Debo's hurt, but Evans and Sutton will give you a floor on a weekly basis. So, I mean, and when Fields is healthy, DJ Moore's fine, but yeah, definitely frustrating. Weren't we for Purdy? No kidding, bro. I don't even know. I mean, obviously, Jake Moody misses the field goal. If he had made that, then that last drive, not as much pressure. The Niners just need to get in field goal range, but regardless, 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter by Purdy, not acceptable in any way. But I'm just happy we had a good football game. Nice little way to end week 7. What advice can you give me? I'm 2-5. Got Tua, Gibbs, Eckler, Chase, Adams, Cup, Goddard, kicker for Cleveland. Hopkins, 22 points. And Seahawks defense, benches Najee, Warren, Shaheed, Hunt. Well, I think when you look, I mean, Seahawks defense has been fine. But if you take away their performance against the Giants, they've just been okay fantasy-wise. So start streaming defenses, look at soft matchups, and try to roll out different defenses. Outside of that, start Tua every week. For now, you got to start Gibbs and Eckler. You could put Kareem Hunt in maybe this week over Gibbs, but we just got to kind of monitor what's happening with the situation with Monty. But either way, it's a good matchup against the Raiders. Chase, Adams, Cup, you got to start him. Goddard. I mean, you have a good squad. You're not starting Najee, Warren, Shaheed over any of those guys. Hunt is close because Jerome Ford's hurt, and it's a good matchup this week. I think you should stream defenses. Keep Hopkins in. I mean, he balled out at the kicker position, but you could try and package Gibbs and Kareem Hunt and sell them high and try and upgrade at running back because Eckler's been hurting, or you can try and trade Eckler on name value, but I'm not a big fan of trading players coming off a poor performance and selling them low. But they could keep Chase, Adams, and Cup. That trio has a lot of value. Keep Goddard, top 4. Keep Tua. Maybe you can swap around some running backs, but Other than that, I don't think there's a whole lot you can do. Man, you have a good squad, though. It just sucks seeing a team like this at 2-5. Jordan Love against the Vikings or Burrow off a bye. Oh, I mean, you always start Burrow. Always start Burrow. 7-0. My team is Tua, CMC, Cup, Kenneth, Olave, Goddard, James Cook. Bench is Warren, Henderson, Dell, Deontay Jameson, JSN. Should I trade Cook and Olave for Jay Jettis and Downs? Yeah, that's a good trade. I mean, you can throw Downs in, I guess, over Olave. I mean, I'm not out on Olave by any means, guys. I don't want you to think that. But think about this trade. You're trading Olave for JJ. You're trading Cook for Downs. That's a good trade. And I like James Cook as well. But, you have Deontay Johnson, JSN's getting some more looks, although DK's been hurt. Dell will be healthy at some point. You're 7-0. This is the type of team that should be trading for Justin Jefferson. Yeah. I'm okay with that trade for you, man. I'm 3-4 now in a full PPR. Can you rate this trade? T-Law, Jacobs for Purdy, Goddard, Mixon. I'm the Purdy side. My other running backs are Saquon and Cook. So you're getting T-Law and Jacobs. If that's the case, then I like it. Sorry, when you say I'm the Purdy side, I'm just not sure if you're receiving the Purdy side or you're trading away the Purdy side. I like the T-Law and Jacobs side more. I mean, T-Law, Purdy, pretty close, but I'd rather have Jacobs and Mixon. The Goddard part's interesting. That kind of offsets the lower ceiling of Mixon and I guess Purdy. But like T-Law hasn't had a crazy high ceiling either. So it's a fair trade in essence. If you're wondering that part, but I prefer the T-Law and Jacobs side. I joined that league. George is in where the trade's being made. All my leagues are insane. Yeah. I have some leagues that are very, very, very active in trading, almost too active. Then I have leagues where like nobody's active. So I see a little bit of all of it. All right, guys. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Do all that YouTube stuff on the way out. Be sure to hit the like. If you guys are new to the channel, thank you so much for being here. I hope you guys enjoyed this stream. Hope I was able to help you guys. Be sure to consider subscribing on the way out. I have the waiver wire video out for the week. I'll have must-start running backs and wide receivers coming out tomorrow for you guys. Steven is working a little bit behind this week, so I'm not exactly sure when defenses and kickers will be out this week. Other than that, I'll put together some more content pieces for you guys, and I'll be on as much as I possibly can throughout the week. So just stay updated. Best place to get updates is our free Discord, which that link is down below. Be sure to join. You guys can ask fantasy football questions on there at any time, get community feedback, get feedback from myself. And that'll do it, guys. Guys, we're almost halfway through the season. Can you believe it? I certainly cannot. But week 8, here we come. It's going to be a great week of football, guys. So I appreciate you guys. And I'll talk to you guys soon. So love you guys, man. Love this community. Love the Catch fam. And with that, I will say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on the Catch. And